tell you, my life was changed from the day I really read the Constitution and the Bill of Rights as an adult. Have you done that? What an experience as an adult to read the Bill of Rights and the Constitution. I was supposed to know it. I was supposed to live by it. I had sworn to live by it to the people I love so much in my nation. When I read that document, I was so disturbed because I knew on a weekly basis, sometimes on a daily basis, folks, as a police officer that thought I was doing good for my community and doing everything right for my community, I too, Officer Jack McLam, was violating my oath of office to you and our Constitution almost every day, and I didn't know it. This little old man in the last days of his life had just changed my life forever. And so what did I do? Wow, I couldn't believe it. I read it again. I read it again. I read it again, and I said, this is what I swore to, you know? And it was amazing. Fantastic documents. And so I went back to work the next day and I told my sergeant, I said, Sergeant, you got to read these. You won't believe what's in here. And he looked at it. It was a Constitution. And he says, okay, Jack, fine. I said, Sergeant, can I live by my oath of office? And he says, you better live by your oath of office, McLam. You better. He didn't know what was in there. He didn't know what we swore to. I saw the lieutenant in the hall. I said, Lieutenant, have you read these? And he looked at me. What is it, McLam? It's the Constitution. It's the Bill of Rights. He said, well, of course. I took it in school. I said, but have you read it? And he says, what's your question? I said, can I live by my oath of office? And he says, McLam, we have to live by our oath of office. You better live by your oath of office. And of course, I was the magic officer. Everything I touched turned good. I couldn't do any wrong. So he says, yes, we must all live by our oath of office. I saw the captain a couple days later, and I asked the captain, I said, Captain, are we supposed to live by our oath of office? He says, you better believe we are, Officer McLam. We all live by our oath of office. He didn't know what was in it, folks. I knew they didn't know. And so I went out that day, my first day back to work, and I started living by my oath of office. What little I knew, because, you know, you read it, and sometimes you don't really understand till you begin to read other documents like the Federalist Papers and some of the other beautiful documents that were written back during that time. And so I sought those out in the next days. I read the Federalist Papers. I read the Constitution Explained. I looked up a constitutional class in Mesa, Arizona, run by some fantastic Mormons over there. A crazy guy, a little printer named Charles Riley, and a little fat housewife with a great smile on her face named Peggy Christensen. Oh, what a marvelous time. And I began to learn what my oath was all about, and I began to live it on the job. And immediately, folks, my career took a plunge. I fell out of grace. I chased IRS agents out of the county because their paperwork wasn't in order. Oh. Wow. I'm telling you, you would think the first day I did that a tacular nuclear bomb had gone off in my chief's office. You did what? Because, see, we're supposed to be afraid of federal agents. When they come to town, we're supposed to bow and scrape and do whatever they ask. Where it's us that has the authority, they have no authority in the counties, in the cities. They must come to the police chief and say, give us authority, send an officer with us. But it's not like that, folks. We're just taught to obey. And when I learned what my oath was about, I decided I would stick to my oath, which was taken to the people of the United States, not to something called the system. I didn't pledge an oath to the system. I didn't pledge an oath to protect the system from the people. I pledge an oath to protect you from all enemies. I don't care if they come in burglars' clothes, rapists' clothes, or federal agents' clothes, or local officers' clothes. I took an oath to protect you. But, you know, I was very unhappy because I was then looked at as a 918. How many know what a 918 is? That's a person that has a mental problem. They thought I'd gone off the deep end. Whoever heard of chasing federal agents out of the city? You know, it had never been done. Never been done. But you know, I kept saying, Chief, you told me I had to live by my oath. Lieutenant, you told me I had to live by my oath. You told us, every one of us did. I'm just going, have you read the Federalist Papers? Look, it's in the book, it's in the book. Look at the Constitution. So they knew I was right every time. But I was rocking the boat. They couldn't have this. And so I came under the greatest persecution I've ever been in my life, folks. And I've just got a couple minutes left. But I want to tell you, this dear man back here, in the back of that room, in the last years of his life, caused me to go forth and to start something that's turned into a geometric progression. Slowly, other officers have been learning what their oath is about. Slowly, officers have been communicating with me. Out of that little man embarrassing me, having the nerve to stand up and embarrass this very authoritarian officer that was there, having a good time and relating with the people, he had the nerve to stand up and call me down and see if I really lived by my oath. And he found out I missed the point. I missed that goal. I did not live up to my goal of supporting my oath to the people. Well, from that came a publication. I was so sad one night, so broken-hearted one night, because my career potential had ended. I was looked at as almost like a disease. My fellow officers still liked me and worked with me, but when the lieutenants would see me, they'd run in their office, and the captain, they'd run. I was outcast. I was just humiliated. I didn't like that, folks. I didn't sleep well at night, and I'd pray, Lord, should it have to be this way? I just want to live by my oath, you know? And so one night, I was so sad that I sat down and I wrote my feelings on 3 pieces of paper. I wrote how I felt about wanting to serve the people. And I sent it out around the country, hoping that some publication, I sent it out to 100 publications, hoping that one of them would write it in their publication, and I could find one officer anywhere that would tell me I was right, because no one told me I was right. I would go to these wonderful patriot meetings with these terrible, radical, crazy tax protesters that love their country and love the Constitution of the United States. Praise God. And they taught me the Constitution. They loved me. They supported me. But when I got back into my career and my profession, they hated my guts. And they were trying to drive me out. And so I wrote these 3 pages, sent it out around the nation, and no one understood it. No one would print it. They thought it was the ravings talking about his oath of office of some crazy police officer in Phoenix, Arizona. And then all of a sudden, one day, 2 months later, I started getting mail in my mailbox. Mail from officers, mail from mothers that had sons that were officers and daughters, and they all said, we read your 3 pages and we want to recopy it. Can we copy it and pass it out at our briefing rooms in our police department? Can I mail it to my son, who's a police officer in another state? And I said, do it. And I began to get some of the most marvelous mail from people that lifted me up and said that, Jack, you're right, and the others are wrong. Boy, I needed that at that time. And I found out that one publication printed that little 3 pages, and that was a little national tax protest newspaper called boy, the name just went out of my mind. A.J. and Anita Lowry. What's the name of that? Justice Times. That was it. In S newspaper. called boy, the name just went out of my mind. A.J. and Anita Lowry. What's the name of that? Justice Times. That was it. Out of Arkansas. And I'll tell you, I was so pleased because I began to hear from fellow officers